All right, welcome back to iWizard. So next up, the theme is incognito, and we have Anne versus As You Were. So let's start with Anne. This one is Buffy striking out on her own, leaving Sunnydale and the Scooby Gang and trying to escape who she is by moving to LA, given everything that's recently happened to her. And yet, in true Buffy fashion, LA is of course being plagued by a demonic force that is snatching up inner city kids. Basically, this demon is disguised as a human being and is going around finding the most vulnerable kids, homeless kids, drug addicts, runaways, and he's inviting them to this place called the family home, where they're summarily taken into another dimension and kept as slaves until they're too old to work, at which point they're then returned once they're all used up to their former dimension to die on the streets. But here is the kicker. In this dimension, time flows differently. It flows at a different rate. It's like, a century to like 1 day or something like that. And so the whole story revolves around this girl, Lily, who is looking for her boyfriend, Ricky, who's been snatched up by the demon, and Buffy has to snap into gear and help her. Buffy thinks she's going to escape, but she has to become kind of the Slayer again to help Lily.
And Anne is Buffy's middle name. Buffy's adopted identity in this episode.
Yeah, so Buffy
she runs away.
Buffy changes her name. She becomes a diner waitress named Anne. And another cool thing about this episode is that you also get the dual narrative of back in Sunnydale, Willow, Xander, Cordelia, and Oz. Because Buffy just left randomly, they have to hold the fort down in her absence, and it's not going well. So you get that storyline as well. And Giles is looking for her. So definitely a good episode. Next up, we have As You Were. So by season 6, episode 15, Joyce has already died. Spoiler alert. And Buffy is working at Double Meat Palace to bring in money for her family to take care of Dawn. When one day, randomly, Riley shows up. He's been hunting down Savoldi demons, tracking them all over the world. He's like this secret agent, James Bond, Jack Reacher, covert ops guy now. And so there's all this cool action thriller stuff in this episode. So anyways, Buffy goes along with him, and she joins with him to hunt these demons down. And eventually, Buffy realizes that Riley's wife is waiting for them, and she realizes Riley is married, and Riley turns out never told Buffy that he was married. So this really does a number on Buffy, and to cope, she goes to Spike's lair and sleeps with him, and then it turns out that Spike is actually the one who is harvesting these demons and raising them in his lair on the black market to make extra money. Anyways, this is one of my favorite episodes. It's really interesting. It's a return of one of my favorite characters, Riley, and it's a lot of fun. But ultimately, I think that As You Were, this second episode, is a better episode than Anne. And so I'm going to go with As You Were. Bye-bye, Anne. I'm sorry. It was nice to know you.
Who are you?
No one.
Who are you?
No one.
Who are you?
I'm Buffy, the vampire slayer, and you are?
The theme for this next round is Unreality Bites, where we get alternate realities with both The Wish and Normal Again. And the writer on The Wish is Marty Noxon, who also created the series Unreal. Yeah, which I really enjoyed. It's kind of that behind-the-scenes look at The Bachelor, but it's fictional. Yeah, it's fun. It's like satire. With The Wish, we get the first appearance of Anya, who's played by Emma Caulfield, and this was supposed to be a one-time gig, and just like with James Marsters, who plays Spike, he was supposed to have like a 4-episode story arc in season 2. She stayed along for the long haul. She was a fan favorite. Yes, she's an excellent character, and in this episode, Cordelia wishes that Buffy Summers never came to Sunnydale. Because of Buffy, she put Xander on the radar and kind of made him cool in Cordelia's eyes, and she just went through a bad breakup with him. He cheated on her with Willow. She fell through a rickety staircase, got impaled by a rebar, and she is healing from that. And so she wishes that Buffy Summers never came.
Be careful what you wish for.
Be careful what you wish for. This is the moral of this episode, for sure. So we enter the Wishverse, okay, where Buffy moved to Cleveland instead of Sunnydale because there's lots of vampires in Cleveland.
And it ends up being
Cleveland, I think there's another Hellmouth in Cleveland.
Yeah. Naturally.
Now let's take a look at Normal Again. And I remember watching the previews for this episode when it first aired. And in the episode, you learn that Buffy isn't really the Slayer. She has been in a mental institution this whole time. There's no vampires, no Sunnydale, none of that. And so I was just like, no, you can't undo all of Buffy. I just remember being so nervous about that because she's jabbed, she's poked by this demon and then kind of just wakes up in this institution. And the thing is, she really struggles throughout the episode, like, is Sunnydale real? I love my friends, but then she's in the mental institution and her mom is still alive.
Right. And
so like if she, so the whole premise is if you kill all of your friends, you will be cured and Sunnydale will be no longer and you'll be better again and you'll have your mother back, but your sister won't exist. It's like, just like, oh, it's a hard episode. Really.
I remember watching that and just being like, wait a minute, they're not doing this, right? This is the way that a sophomore in college ends a story, which is it's just been a dream the whole time.
No, but at least the ending is left open for interpretation. So if we want to believe the Slayer's real, we can. If we want to believe she's in an institution and the story goes on, we can.
It's like a choose your own adventure novel. Yeah.
And Joss Whedon was working on the Astonishing X-Men at the time, so this was meant to be a crossover with that. So in X-Men, Cyclops is Scott Summers, and so it's mentioned that he has a female cousin who has been sent to a mental institution, so Buffy Summers.
All right, so who wins?
I'd say the Wish wins.
Me too.
Yeah, definitely. R.I.P. Normal Again.
They told me that I was sick. I guess crazy. And that Sunnydale and all of this, none of it was real.
Ah, come on, that's ridiculous. What? You think this isn't real just because of all the vampires and demons and ex-vengeance demons and the sister that used to be a big ball of universe-destroying energy?
Okay, all in favor of research?
Okay, next up we have Not Wired That Way, and you probably get the theme there with Ted versus I Was Made to Love You. So let's start with Ted. So this is quite possibly my favorite Buffy episode ever made. And I know this is not like the Critics' Choice Awards choice, but it's probably my favorite Buffy episode for a bunch of different reasons. So Buffy comes home one night and finds her mom making out with this nerdy dad-looking guy. And of course, the actor is John Ritter, so it's pitch perfect. This episode is another entry in that kind of scary, violent stepfather with a dark past genre of horror. So Buffy's mom's new boyfriend, the guy's just too perfect. He's got a perfect job. He's eerily precise about everything. He's way too manicured. Although he does make perfect mini pizzas and the best.
Like he's like 1950s perfect.
He's 1950s perfect. Like he's kind of like a robot almost.
Oh.
And he makes the best cookies, and everyone loves everything he does. Buffy's mom loves him way too much with a kind of enthusiasm that's just over the top. And Ted always seems to say the right thing. But there's also something creepy and oddly controlling about the way he says everything. And Buffy just hates him. She can't really explain why. And the crazy thing is that no one else seems to notice that there's something off about Ted. And yet it turns out, if you get my gist here, that there is something seriously wrong with Ted. And it's just such a fun episode, and we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there until a little bit later. Next up, we have I Was Made to Love You. This is the episode where Warren has made a cute as a button robot girlfriend, and she's actually really funny. This is the robot that goes around asking everyone, "Hi, do you know Warren?" And no one but Warren can touch me, right? And she goes around basically beating everyone up while Warren hides for her and she searches for him. And the funny thing is that the robot's personality is actually very similar to Anya's. So Anya actually is like, I don't see what's weird about her. I kind of like her. So this is the episode that comes after Dawn learns that she's the key, and after Riley leaves Buffy. And so obviously now Spike is in love with Buffy because there's an opening. Joyce is also going out on dates, and Buffy's trying to date again too, but she's having no luck, and Buffy thinks, I think I might need to change my personality. What's wrong with me? No one likes me. So this is another just kind of campy, fun episode of Buffy, and it's one that I really have a fondness for. But ultimately, Ted is going to win the day because John Ritter is Ted. And the performance...
Jordan loves Ted.
It's an amazing episode. Just turn off your sort of uber serious critics sort of hat and get into Ted, and you'll see why I love it so much. Okay, so sayonara, I Was Made to Love You. I do love you, but you're not as good as Ted.
Can you cry? Sometimes I feel better when I cry, but there might be rust issues.
Crying is blackmail. Good girlfriends don't cry.
This matchup is called Cast Awry, and we have Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered versus Something Blue. And this is a reoccurring episode theme in Buffy, the spell that goes awry. And these two are my favorites. They're just such a joy to watch. And so with Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, it is Valentine's Day, and what else do you do on Valentine's Day?
That's your birthday.
It is my birthday. But you also break up with your boyfriend apparently on Valentine's Day, right? And so Cordelia breaks up with Xander right after he gives her a necklace. And she does not really want to break up with him, but her popularity is at stake and ultimately more important.
And that's what Cordy cares about.
Yep, that's what she is all about. And to get back at her, Xander gets the witch Amy to cast a love spell on Cordelia for him because he wants to break up with her when she's obsessed with him because it's high school and that's what they do. But anyway, the spell backfires and it makes every woman in Sunnydale obsessed with Xander with the exception of Cordelia. And so they're all running after him and it's
great.
It's so fun. This is actually the episode where Cordy officially joins the Scooby Gang. She gets back with Xander at the end after everyone wants him and they're all embarrassed by it. In this episode as well, Angel sends Buffy a box of roses. Do you remember that? And there's a note on the roses. And this is when Angel doesn't have a soul. And on the note, it says soon. That's a reference to I Know What You Did Last Summer, where Sarah Michelle Gellar wakes up and she sees soon written on the mirror in lipstick. So that's what that's from.
So creepy.
Yeah. Then we have Something Blue. And in Something Blue, it's another kind of love spell backfiring episode. Willow is hurting after her breakup with Oz. He's left Sunnydale to seek a cure from turning into a werewolf each month. So she's all upset and she performs a spell to have her will done so she can will herself to feel better. And what ends up happening is she inadvertently strikes Giles blind. She gets Buffy engaged to Spike.
Yep.
And Xander becomes a demon magnet. This is the first episode where Buffy and Spike actually kiss, even though it's a spell-induced
And they
kiss.
start planning their wedding.
They start planning their wedding. I love that episode, and it wins. So, farewell, Bewitched,
Good
Bothered,
choice.
and Bewildered.
Xander. Thank you. It's beautiful. I want to break up.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know what's a good day to break up with somebody? Any day besides Valentine's Day.
Okay, next up we have Harbingers. That's the theme with amends versus conversations with dead people. So let's start with amends. I included this because I think it's an important episode. This is the show's earliest reference to the evil known as the First. So this is the first of the first. It's also the only Christmas episode, and I love me some holiday cheer. So this one is basically Angel being haunted by visions of his violent past and having to own up to his history and make up for past mistakes. But instead of the ghost of Christmas past, it is the ghost of Jenny Calendar lingering around him. Also, I have to say, while I do love Oz's character, I really do like his character, and I liked that period of the show while he and Willow were together. And the guy's a total namby-pamby in this one, and you'll just have to watch the episode to see what I mean. And lastly, I just want to say that this episode ends with one of the few, I guess, truly happy moments that Buffy really ever gets to experience with Angel. And so that is a nice way to end the episode. Next up, we have conversations with dead people. So this is the one where the First is visiting everyone with visions of their loved ones from the dead. Willow gets in touch with Tara. Dawn is being haunted at home by Joyce. Andrew and Jonathan are being visited by Warren. And the best part about this episode is probably Buffy's long, drawn-out conversation with Holden Webster. This vampire she used to go to school with. So she's out slaying, and the vampire she has to slay is this guy she graduated with. So this is one where everyone is in a different location, and there are a bunch of different really compelling storylines. So the theme here is obviously laid out in the title, and that is conversing with the dead. But it's really more about getting in touch with the beyond and meeting the First. It's a truly great episode for sure. Okay.
What wins?
What wins? Right, of course. What wins is conversations with dead people.
It's so good.
It's one of my favorite Buffy episodes. It's one of the best, like objectively, it's one of the best Buffy episodes. It's so tightly written. It's so well directed. The plot is so tight and controlled and well executed. It's obviously the better episode. So I'm sorry, sayonara, amends. We're going to have to say goodbye to you. Rest in peace.
Hey, Buffy, take a look. These letters contain references to an ancient power known as the First.
First what?
Evil. Absolute evil.
Here we have origins. So Becoming Part 1 versus Fool for Love. And the matchup is just so close. I'm still going back and forth on it. In Becoming, we get Angel's origin story and also a bit of Buffy's beginnings as a Slayer and the ending of another. And in Fool for Love, we get Spike's origin story and the endings of 2 Slayers. So let's begin with vampire lineage. The Master sired Darla, who sired Angel, whose human name was Liam, who sired Drusilla, who sired Spike, whose human name was William. And typing these out, I'm now seeing Liam is part of William. And I'm wondering, I'm wondering if that was on purpose. Probably, maybe. Anyway, Becoming is a 2-part episode, and while part 2 has the epic ending, I definitely think as a whole, part 1 is a better episode. And that might be contested, but I think part 1's a better episode. And you get all these flashbacks, you get to go to Galway in 1753, England in 1860, Romania in 1898, New York City in 96, and LA in 96.
Didn't you get your ring here from Galway, this one?
Yes, the Claddagh. That's why Angel's from Galway. He wears the Claddagh ring. He's Irish. Yeah.
There it is.
Liam. Yep. Also, when Angel loses his soul, he turns the ring to face outwards since he's no longer in love.
Right.
He's
right.
soulless.
As you do.
As you do. In Fool for Love, the episode begins with Buffy being impaled by her own stake by a regular vampire. And so she's like starting to worry. She's like, oh no, like, how did these other Slayers die? You know, like, so she seeks out Spike to learn exactly how he killed 2 Slayers. So in this story, we get the flashback to Spike. We get to see him getting sired, which is actually pretty funny, as he's like, ow, 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 as Drusilla is biting him. He's pretty sensitive. He was a poet, and he was obsessed with Cecily. And so he's like writing this poem for her. And Cecily is played by the actress who plays Halfrek in season 6, who's Anya's friend, who's also a vengeance demon. And in the episode Older and Far Away in season 6, it's alluded that she and Spike have a past together. She's like, oh, William. And the thing is, there's this like non-canonical offshoot comic in which Halfrek actually just obliterates everyone in that room who is making fun of Spike's poetry. She just completely decimates them.
Yeah. Effulgent.
That she was already a vengeance demon at that point and she was helping Spike,
Yes.
which is kind of funny
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he needed it.
Yeah.
He needed the vengeance. Anyway, I do think Becoming is the better episode, but I enjoy Fool for Love more. So bye-bye, Becoming.
Bye-bye.
R.I.P.
Buffy Summers,
Yeah? Hi. What?
I need to speak with you.
You're not from Bullock's, are you? Because I meant to pay for that lipstick.
There isn't much time. You must come with me. Your destiny awaits.
I don't have a destiny. I'm destiny free, really.
Yes, you have. You are the chosen one. You alone can stop them.
Who?
The vampires.
Huh?
So the theme for this matchup is endings and beginnings. It's the body versus Chosen, the last episode of the entire show. Let's start with the body. Buffy and her friends are overwhelmed with grief, and their lives are changed forever as they deal with the loss of Buffy's mother, Joyce. And one of the things that makes this episode so sad is that Joyce is so full of life this episode. She's about to go on a date. She's just been sent flowers. She's trying on outfits. And then very suddenly, Buffy enters the living room and you get that iconic and oh so tragic scene where her mother is dead, sprawled across the couch, pale skin, open eyes, just lying there, not breathing. It's a very emotional episode with a lot of heart, a lot of pathos. The episode is just deeply sad, very kind of realistic, but it's also beautiful and, tasteful. This episode, I would say, really marks a change in Buffy because she now has to learn to make it on her own. Buffy is, at this point on, she has to be a survivor, not only in the slaying arena, but also in the domestic arena as well. And for the rest of the show, Buffy, kind of has to be the woman of the house. And I think that's really important in the overall arc of the narrative. And the next one we have is Chosen. Chosen, as you guys know, season 7, episode 22. It's the final episode of the entire show. So Buffy has got her potential Slayer army with the original Scooby Gang along with them, and they are ready for the final showdown with the most terrible foe they have ever faced, the first. Angel comes back to Sunnydale in the beginning, if you remember, to help Buffy, but Buffy sends him back to LA because she's worried, we gotta, distribute the power, make sure that there's a second front against the first just in case she should fail. It's kind of a cool episode because Buffy comes up with this genius plan that Giles approves of to defeat the First. And the First, as you know, is gearing up first to take over Sunnydale and then to take over the world. So this is another episode where Buffy has to save the world. And we get to see Buffy's, live action plan, her inspirational pre-battle locker room general's speech. And what follows is just, Joss Whedon directorial magic, a truly great episode for ending the entire series. And I feel like this is becoming more rare these days, not to cite anything in particular, Game of Thrones, where you actually have in Buffy a really satisfying, controlled, smart, kind of savvy ending that does the entire show justice and makes the fans proud. So that's the way to do it. And because of that, Chosen is definitely going to be the winner. Chosen is the winner, and I'm sorry. I know this is a fan favorite, but we're going to have to wave goodbye to the body. Rest in peace, Joyce.
I hate this oven. Burnt.
Oh, no, it's just blackened. It's Cajun pie.
Shall I open another?
How do you think we dare?
As long as you two stay away from the band candy, I'm cool with anything.
You are a demon child.
I live to torment you. Is that so wrong?
A daughter's duty, I suppose.
Look, all we have to do is just cut off a little bit of the burnt. Mom, 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 Mom!
Last matchup in this round. You still with us? We have I've Died Twice, and this is Prophecy Girl versus The Gift. And I think the theme is clear here. We have the 2 episodes where Buffy dies, and we also get 2 apocalypses.
Apocalypsoids.
It's not really meant to have a plural. And Giles reads this prophecy that says the Slayer will die by the hands of the Marsters. So she gets all dressed up for, I think it's prom, and she goes down there to fight the Master, and he bites her, and she falls into water and drowns. And fortunately, Xander and Angel go to save her, and Xander's able to revive her this time. So Xander brings her back to life the first time, because apparently vampires don't have breath. And Buffy's bitten 2 more times in the series, once by Angel and then again by Dracula. And, well, after Buffy is revived, she goes up to kill the Master, and the Hellmouth has already opened, and we have these tentacles coming out. And because the first season's so low budget, people were dressed as the tentacles, and the sounds coming out were the same as the sounds of the Velociraptors.
So they couldn't
Jurassic
afford
Park.
CGI or something like that?
Or the mechanical arms that would look good.
And so people were inside each of the tentacles?
Yes.
Wow.
This is an iconic episode where you get Buffy in the leather jacket and the white dress with her crossbow. I got my pop figure there. Yeah. This is going up against The Gift. And The Gift is the season finale of season 5. It's also the 100th episode of Buffy, and it was originally meant to be the last episode of Buffy. And this is when Buffy switched networks after the season. They switched from UPN to the CW. In this episode, the god Glory has kidnapped Dawn, who's the key. The key opens the portal back to her hell dimension, and if she opens it, then all other dimensions collapse in on each other, and it's just, only the end of the world, right? And this is apocalypse number 6, maybe at this point, something like that. So the thing is, blood opens the portal, and only blood can close the portal. So Buffy sacrifices herself to save the world in a super emotional scene. This episode opens with previously on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was a mashup of everything that had happened in the series so far. And I'm
really?
Just talking about it, I'm getting emotional. I was and it's just it was a heavy episode. And
I remember this one. Yep.
Yeah, and this whole episode is shot like a comic book, I think. That's what it looks like to me, and I do love it.
Is this the one where Buffy jumps off the thing at the very end?
Yes, the tower made by crazy people.
Yes.
Yeah, and before she jumps, she tells Dawn, the hardest thing in this world is to live in it. And I think, if I'm remembering correctly, she says something similar to Angel at the end of the Amends episode. She gives him that speech, like when the First is trying to get him to kill himself. But it's
no doubt.
It's such a good episode, and
so which one wins ultimately?
The Gift, I'd say.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, Prophecy Girl's iconic, but The Gift, The Gift gets me.
Okay, I think that's fair.
And it's really like there's a lot of action, and it's good. It's great. Yeah.
You're dead.
I may be dead, but I'm still pretty. Which is more than I can say for you.
Come here. Did you really think you could best me here when you couldn't below?
You have fruit punch mouth.
What?
Let me rest in peace. Why won't you let me rest in peace?
All right, we've made it through the first round, and we are now at the Sweet 16. We're narrowing it down, and we're going to start with School Hard again and Earshot. And so we have these two going up against each other. We'll see which one makes it to the next round. School Hard, remember that's the vampire attack at the parent night. There's that shocking scene where the vampires with Spike at the lead, they jump through the window of the school and attack the parents. And then Principal Snyder, who has ratted Buffy out to her mom, has to eat it when Buffy saves the whole school. So for me, this episode is important because it's the one where Buffy is able, for the first time, to prove to her mom that she's not a troublemaker or degenerate, but that she's hardy and she's brave and she's even under pressure and that she can really take care of herself. And then another reason it's special is that it marks the entrance of Spike. It's his first episode, right?
Yeah, it's Spike's first episode.
And he's one of my favorite characters. I love Xander and Riley and Spike, and then Buffy as well, and maybe Faith. Those are probably the bundle of my favorite characters. And you'll remember that iconic scene where Spike steps out of the car to the kind of goth music for the first time, and he basically promises to kill Buffy. We also meet Drusilla for the first time in this episode. I like daisies. This is my impression of Drusilla. I like daisies. I plant them, but they always die. Next up, we have Earshot. Okay, this is the episode again where Buffy's fighting these creepy demons, and they infect her with an aspect of their powers.
Aspect of the demon.
The aspect of the demon, which allows Buffy to read people's minds. So for the rest of the episode, Buffy walks around school and she can hear other people's thoughts. And all of a sudden, she can sit in class and she can read her teacher's minds, which allows her to suddenly have all the right answers. And so for once, Buffy's the best student in class. It also allows her to hear the hidden resentments and sexual fantasies of her classmates. And oddly enough, the only person whose mind she can't read is Angel. For some reason, she can't read Angel's mind. It's
because of the reflection thing.
Oh,
something to do with that. Like they have no reflection in a mirror.
Yeah.
And so their thoughts are there, but there's no reflection.
Yeah. I guess one of the reasons I like this episode is that I always like that movie, the Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want. Something like that. What Women Want. Because it's kind of a reverse version of that, where Buffy is walking around the school and she can read her male classmates' minds and hear what they're thinking. She realizes that guys often have kind of naughty things in their minds, and that's just what guys are like. It's funny because Giles is kind of skeptical and he kind of thinks that this is just a sort of Freudian projection of Buffy's unconscious mind. But another reason I like the episode is that we can literally hear the thoughts of our favorite characters, and we get to know them better because of that. We realize that Cordelia literally says what she thinks, and she doesn't have a filter, and she just spews everything that's on her mind. We realize Wesley Wyndham-Pryce is in love with Cordelia, and
Oz has a lot of thoughts in his head.
Sort of philosophical, idiosyncratic
Even though he's
thoughts.
quiet.
And the episode has a pretty satisfying ending as well. Also, this is the episode where Buffy learns that her mother, Joyce, had sex with Giles on the hood of a cop car twice.
That was from that Band Candy episode.
Yeah. So, but ultimately, I would say, you got to give this one to School Hard. It's just a better episode when it comes down to it.
You touched one of the demons.
A good touch, not a bad touch. Anyway, it's been itching like crazy. No big. Just another problem for the good people at Liverdome, right?
Is the demon in question?
In the disgusting flesh. What?
It says it can infect the host.
Infect? Infect? Giles. Infect?
Here we have passion versus intervention. And between these two episodes, we get the contrast of the soulless nature of Angel versus the soulless nature of Spike. And Angel is evil, capital E, whereas Spike is, Spike. In life, Spike was this emotional poet. And as effulgent. What's another word for gleaming, right? Because gleaming doesn't rhyme with anything, but effulgent does. Effulgent. Yeah, he was a bad poet. As a vampire, even though he doesn't have a soul, because he doesn't have a soul, he's twisted and he's in love with Buffy. He's obsessed with Buffy. So he commissioned the Buffy bot, who serves as the lightness in this episode. Like, she reads her programming literally, Giles was even programmed incorrectly. So he's Giles.
Hello, Giles.
Because Spike doesn't care. Yeah. And she has 2 lines of information about each character. So, Anya, how's your money?
Hello, Anya. How's your money?
Willow, you're recently gay. So very even keeled. I can't do
You
it
are
too
the
well.
gay one. Hello.
Yeah. But even without a soul, in this episode, he's captured by Glory. And Glory tortures him. And because she wants to find out the identity of the key. And he doesn't give in. And it's really hard to watch, but it's because that he cares for Buffy and his love for Buffy, and he's not pure evil, even though he doesn't have a soul, he gets just beaten up for her. And that earns him his first real kiss, his non-magic kiss from Buffy at the end of the episode. And also in this episode, Buffy goes on her quest to the desert with Giles, her spiritual quest, and Giles brings his gourd. Remember, and he has to shake his gourd and jump in and out of the circle and do the hokey pokey.
It's like when the eagles go out into the desert.
Yeah.
To find themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much. So it's a really fantastic episode.
Yeah.
And this episode and Passion, they both show passionate devotion in different ways. Yeah. So while Angel is soulless, he is still obsessed with Buffy, much like Spike is. She's the only thing he thinks about. But he just wants to torment her. He wants to torment her family and friends. Angel's just awful. And somehow...
Total sociopath. And I find it really interesting that, Angel can turn into this killer sociopath, psychopath monster one episode. And then a few episodes later, he's able to win the audience back. And we're all rooting for him again.
And for that reason, Passion does win this one.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good call.
It's a better episode. It really is. And so Michael Gershman, director of both, beat himself out.
Yeah.
Am I a robot?
The robot is gone. The robot was gross and obscene.
It wasn't supposed to.
Don't. That thing, it wasn't even real. What you did for me and Dawn, that was real.
All right, next up we have Buffy versus Dracula versus villains. So Buffy versus Dracula, again, this is the one where Dracula comes to Sunnydale to meet this renowned killer, as he calls her, that he's heard so much about. This episode it's modern, obviously, but it has the feel of the old sort of Bela Lugosi Dracula movies from the 1930s. There are moments in this episode where it feels like you're actually in Transylvania, and that's pretty cool. They get the kind of aesthetic right. Buffy is smitten with Dracula and his dark, penetrating eyes, and Dracula is watching over all of them. Xander, Willow, Anya. In fact, Xander is so mesmerized by Dracula that he basically becomes hypnotized into becoming Dracula's emissary and ends up leading the Scooby Gang into danger. Also, I want to say the actor that they chose for Dracula is totally fantastic. I feel like it would have been really hard to get this right, given that whoever they chose would have to be young, but would also have to feel old because Dracula is such an ancient legend. Also, the actor that they chose is totally hypnotic, and because of that, even Buffy falls under his sway, and she lets him bite her. She can't help it. And the other kind of cool thing about this episode is that there's this jealousy feud going on. Riley is uncomfortable that she's smitten with Dracula. He can kind of tell. He notices that she's been bitten and he gets jealous. She's got a scarf around her neck and he rips it off. One of the fun aspects of this episode is watching Riley get all worked up because Buffy can't control herself when she's around Dracula. And
he's still insecure about Angel.
Yeah. And
like everyone is.
And what's funny is Riley gets so worked up that at one point he just swallows his pride and he goes to visit Spike. And he doesn't like Spike, as you know, because Spike knows Dracula. So Riley's like, who is this guy? Who is Dracula? Can I get some information about him? And Spike's like, oh yeah, Dracula's this glory hound, and Dracula's basically responsible for teaching humans how to kill vampires, and he's just this attention-seeking whore and all of that stuff. So it's a great episode, and it's going up against villains for this round. Villains, if you remember, Willow is trying to get revenge on Warren, and she turns into the baddest witch in town. Willow becomes this crazy dark sorceress, and one of the main reasons for this is that Tara was always around to stop Willow from getting to this level and from taking magic too far. She was always the one to keep Willow in check, and now Tara's been killed and Willow doesn't give a shit anymore. And this is really the first episode where we get to see Warren afraid, just genuinely afraid, terrified. And so Warren goes and he seeks out the warlock Rack for help. And this guy's great. The actor, I don't know who the actor is, but the guy's great. And the guy's just like, you're screwed. You're screwed. And ultimately, Willow chases Warren all over town, and he tries to escape via a bus out of town, but Willow stops the bus and pulls him out to kill him. But it turns out, because you know Warren, that Warren has created a decoy robot and it tricks her, and that only makes Willow more angry. And I know this sounds ridiculous, but if you know anything about Warren is a guy who creates lifelike robots. I know if you've never watched Buffy before, this is ridiculous. But I like this episode because this episode is about vengeance. It's about Willow losing her grip on reality. It's about love. It's about power. It's about loss. And it's also about the ethics of messing with magic, about toying with reality, about playing God, about messing with forces that are outside of your control. And one of the other things I like is that there's an almost apocalyptic feel to this episode. And there's a great quote from Buffy. She says, being a slayer doesn't give me the license to kill. Warren's a human. We can't control the universe. If we're supposed to, then the magic wouldn't change Willow the way that it does. And Willow disagrees, which is why she kills Warren in the most utterly gruesome way that it's possible to kill another human being. And so I just want to say ultimately that Villains is a great episode, but I'm going to say in the end, Buffy versus Dracula makes it to the next round because it's so well done. The acting is great, and it harkens back to great literature and great legends that I think we can all identify with.
This isn't good for you.
You made the decision to stop for a reason. You promised us. Can I just ask, what's with the makeover of the damned? I mean, the hair.
Turn right. Go.
Go. Where?
Over there, now.
Well,
Turn.
Next up in the Sweet 16 is Halloween versus Hush. And I suppose the common thread to these two episodes is that they are fantastic to watch during spooky season. And that's probably about it. But Halloween is just so fun and so light, and it starts with Spike studying Buffy's moves. So she's fighting, obviously, in the cemetery by a bunch of pumpkins, and she falls on a pumpkin, and she gets all, like, tousled with hay and all this stuff, and there's another vampire filming her, you know, to study her moves to give to Spike. Buffy has also, in this episode, set her first date with Angel at the Bronze, and she's late, so Cordelia keeps him company. And so Cordelia is, of course, like all dolled up and looking perfect, and Buffy walks in, you know, all disheveled from her fight with like straw in her hair, and she just feels so like sad after that. And she and Willow go and steal the Watcher diaries from Giles so that she can learn more about Angel's past girlfriends. You know, like before there was Facebook, there were Watcher diaries or whatever. And so she sees that he used to date these noble women. And so Buffy gets this costume from Ethan's costume shop so she can dress as an 18th century noblewoman so that Angel would like her better. And now that we know more about Angel, we know that's not who Angel is.
That's a good girlfriend right there.
But that's very sweet. And Willow is dressed as a hot rocker chick. And Buffy's trying to convince her, like, oh, it's Halloween night. Come as you aren't. We're supposed to like just dress up and be someone else, but she's all like embarrassed from being exposed, so she throws on a ghost costume that she got from Ethan's over it, just a sheet. Xander got a gun from toy gun from the costume shop, so he turns into a commando, which is important because he maintains the commando knowledge he gained from his costume transformation, and that comes in handy in later episodes. So once Spike gets wind that this transformation has undergone and all these little kids who are like out trick-or-treating have turned into little demons and stuff like that, he goes to hunt Buffy in her weakened state. And so there's the suspense there. But Hush, really, I can't compare these two episodes. I really can't. So I'm not even going to talk about it here. Onward, Hush wins.
Hush wins. Yeah, if you know anything about Hush, it really needs no explanation. We'll get into it a little bit more.
We'll get into it later.
Angel's a vampire. I thought you knew.
Oh, he's a vampire. Of course, but the cuddly kind. Like a Care Bear with fangs.
It's true.
You know what I think? I just think you're trying to scare me off because you're afraid of the competition. Look, Buffy, you may be hot stuff when it comes to demonology or whatever, but when it comes to dating, I'm the Slayer.
So we have the second round matchup for As You Were versus Ted. So if you remember, As You Were is the secret agent Riley, Buffy, Sam episode. Agent Finn is back in town with his agent wife, Sam. So there's all this tension and complex emotions. Buffy thought he was gone for good, and now he's back and he's married, and it seems like he's shoving it in her face. So Willow offers to be mean to Sam. You know, I'll be mean to her on your behalf if you want me to. I'm on your side. But Buffy's not so petty as all of that. And the other thing is that the whole crew, including Sam and Riley, end up staying the night at Buffy's house, and everyone wants to hate Riley's wife because they feel bad for Buffy. But the thing is that Sam is actually cool. It's really impossible to hate her. She's this smart, tough, no BS person, and this episode really gives us a Buffy who has sunk as low as she can possibly go. She's working at the whatever it is called, the Mega Meat Palace or whatever.
The Double Meat Palace.
The Double Meat Palace.
Because double meat is double sweet.
She smells like burgers. She has no parents. She's lost Riley. She's sleeping with Spike. And now she has the world on her shoulders. And so she's sunk about as low as she can go. So this is bottom of the barrel, Buffy. There's some closure in this episode, though, in that she learns something from the whole experience. And we get a sense, finally, that Buffy is not alone in her fight against this legion of demons. There's a whole agency that kind of feels like has her back, and that Riley is out there doing the work that she's doing. It's also, in the end, the episode, I would say, that Buffy realizes what she wants as a person, as a woman. So it's really a turning point for Buffy, because this gives her the strength. Seeing Riley with Sam and seeing them happy gives her the strength to finally break it off with Spike. And there's that scene at the end where she gets all dressed up and she breaks up with Spike. And you're both rooting for Buffy and you're heartbroken for Spike. And it's just an amazing episode. But the problem is, guys, that I have a really deep soft spot for Ted. My wife doesn't understand it. Nikki was like, why is Ted even making it into the top 32? And my answer to that is, it's just perfect. And I can't explain why, but I had to fight for this episode, and it's worth it. So this is, remember, the one where Buffy's mom is romanced by this perfect...
These were 2 episodes you fought for.
Okay, so I fought for both of them. But Ted is actually my favorite Buffy episode. And I'm not so... I won't spoil where the episodes end up and which one wins in the end. But I will say that I did fight for Ted. This is the one where Buffy's mom is dating this really, creepy computer programmer, computer tech salesman guy who wants to move into Buffy's life and become her stepfather. Willow and Xander love him, but Buffy thinks that there's just something a little too clean about him, whereas Xander is like, you're crazy. You've got some Freudian issues. This guy's perfect. And Joyce is totally smitten with him. Buffy's like, my mom's turning into a weird, obedient, subservient Stepford wife. So this is a kind of eerie episode. It's also eerie that the guy is a computer software person, and he just so happens to be installing software at Buffy's high school. So Buffy sees her mom dating this guy and shows up to school the next day, and he's there in the hallway, and he runs into Buffy and her friends, and he's like, do you guys want to go out on a date with me and your mom to go play mini golf? And Xander and Willow are like, yeah, that sounds awesome. And let me tell you guys, the mini golf putt-putt scene is everything. It's probably one of my favorite scenes in all of television. This is just such a creepy episode. He asks Buffy that night at dinner if he can propose to her mother, and Buffy's like, I'll kill myself. And so she runs away and escapes and jumps out her window after she's been sent to her room. And when she gets back, Ted is sitting there in the dark. It's that creepy scene where the killer is sitting in your room when you get back from climbing back in the window, and he's just sitting there, and he's like, yo, what are you doing, young lady? And let me just say one last thing. Ultimately, Buffy kills the guy. Buffy kills Ted. He steals her diary. He goes through all her stuff. And when Buffy gets back, she's like, how dare you give me back my diary? And he's like, no. And then he hits her and she kills him. Okay. So I won't say anything more. The ending is spectacular. I haven't even gotten to the ending. You have to watch Ted. I think it should be the winner of this entire tournament challenge. My wife disagrees, obviously. But ultimately, I'm going to say, at least in this round, Ted definitely wins. This is one for the ages.
Why did we ever agree to have your friends, who are demons, and my family, who are monsters, stay at our place?
Well, I can only do so much, Sandra. Planning this marriage is like staging the invasion of Normandy.
Without the laughs. We should have eloped.
No. I've been through too much planning this wedding, and it is going to happen. It is going to be our perfect day if I have to kill every one of our guests in half this town to do it.
Okay, The Wish versus Something Blue. In The Wish, we enter the Wish-verse, right? This alternate reality where Buffy never came to Sunnydale. And it was a fun experiment episode. Everyone in Sunnydale has a curfew. Vampires have set up their lair in the Bronze. The Master never died. Vampire Willow and Xander are his loyal sidekicks, and they're together. And remember, Cordelia made this wish because she saw Willow and Xander kissing. And so she broke up with Xander. And they're still together as vampires. So the wish didn't even undo that. So it was not a good wish on Cordelia's part. They also have serious like Drusilla and Spike vibes going on, Willow and Xander. And Angel is kept in a cage. Willow calls him her puppy, and she kind of creepy. The vampires are also working on setting up a mechanical assembly line for taking blood. Remember, all like the needles go in. Like, I don't know how that's more efficient. Like, don't you think the teeth would just be more efficient?
Yeah.
That seems a little bit overboard.
Well, why was Willow wearing leather pants? Like, who wears leather pants?
Well, she's Dark Willow.
She's Dark Willow.
Again.
So gotta wear leather pants.
Doppelganger Willow. And so Giles spends the episode trying to find Buffy, trying to get the Slayer to come to Sunnydale. And finally, she does. She has a scar on her face, which I think harkens to Frey from the comics. So she's kind of like tougher, and she is kind of masochistic too, and has this dark side, which sort of starts to come out for her like in later seasons as well, when she's really struggling in season 6. And really, honestly, Something Blue is just even more fun. And like there's a sadness to the wish, like Buffy and Angel never got together. I mean, it's just so sad in that sense. And so Something Blue, I have a blast watching Something Blue. It's so rewatchable. And this is when Buffy and Riley are at the point in their relationship where they clearly like each other, but they're both super like nervous to make a move, and like nothing has happened yet. They haven't even gone on a date yet, and they're like really nervous and careful around each other. So I'm gonna stick with Something Blue and R.I.P. The Wish.
Oh.
Okay, that was too close for comfort. Not that slaying's ever comfy, but you know what I mean. If you guys hadn't been here to help.
But we were, and we did it, and we're all fine. Isn't he gonna go poof?
Okay, our next Sweet 16 matchup, Conversations with Dead People and Chosen. So I want to start with Conversations with Dead People, one of my favorite episodes. And this is an episode with several different storylines. You've got Buffy, who is heartsick and conflicted, and she's out patrolling, and she ends up fighting this vampire who's actually this really smart, thoughtful guy that she went to high school with, Holden Webster, who got turned into a vamp when he was at Dartmouth or something like that. And because of Buffy's emotional state, she just can't seem to fight him. She ends up just talking to him and kind of making friends with him before she ultimately has to kill him. So it's one of the funniest back and forth exchanges you can possibly imagine. The guy basically psychoanalyzes her, and every time they're about to fight, he says something that makes her want to just talk to him and open up and identify with him. And at the same time, you have Dawn at home, and she's home alone, obviously, doing the whole risky business thing. And while she's at it, she is haunted by this poltergeist-like demon thing that speaks in the voice of Joyce. Meanwhile, there's another storyline. Willow is in the library, and this dead girl comes to visit her, claiming to be able to communicate with Tara from the dead. And she's like this medium, and she walks up to Willow, and she's like, telling Willow things that she couldn't possibly know about the relationship unless she were in contact with Tara. And then there's another storyline with Jonathan and Andrew, and they're trying to get back into Buffy's good graces after Warren shot her. So they're exploring the high school and trying to find this seal. And then Warren visits them from the dead. And the thing about this episode is that in each of these cases, it is actually just the first tricking these characters and manipulating them. And so this is really, in this episode, our introduction to the first. And the first is like the major main bad guy in season 7. We've seen them before, but we've only briefly glimpsed them. And one of the great things about this episode is that there is something unique and compelling about each one of the storylines. And it's just an example of such tight directing, such amazing story writing, and really, really impressive storytelling. We're going up against Chosen. So again, Chosen is the final episode of Buffy. It's the final showdown with the first. And one of my favorite moments from this episode is when Caleb, the creepy preacher man,
Nathan Fillion.
I'm Caleb, you bitch. He shows up, he calls Buffy a bitch, and my God, Buffy just unseams him not from the nape to the chops, from the groin to the chops, to quote
with
Macbeth.
the scythe. This is also the appearance of the scythe, the red axe-looking thing with the spike with the stake at the end.
Exactly.
And I actually thought that it was around for longer just because it's in the comics for so long that I forgot that it's only in the last few episodes of Buffy ever. But the weapon of the Slayer, the scythe.
Yeah, we get this mythical super weapon that Buffy has to pull out of a stone or something like that. So it's tied in with the kind of Arthurian legend and things like that. And one of the things I like about this episode is there's a bit of jealousy between Spike and Angel. But remember, this is the episode where Buffy gives Spike the amulet and calls him her champion. So Spike finally in this episode, after all these episodes, he finally gets his due. But this episode has possibly the greatest scene of the entire show altogether, of course, when Spike, who is wearing the amulet, heroically holds the line all by himself, lighting up like a torch and staving off the chaos while the building collapses all around him. And Buffy finally tells him, as he holds off the bad guys and saves the world, basically, Buffy says, I love you. And Spike, in his characteristically punk fashion, self-aware punk fashion, says, no, you don't, but I want to see how it ends. And we watch Spike turn.
Well, he thanks her for it.
He says,
no, you don't, but thank
you. And then we see Spike turn to ashes. And there are many heroes in this episode, but none more so than Spike. And then we get to see Buffy's epic escape and that sort of thing. She's running on top of the buses as Sunnydale
as everything's falling behind
sinks
her.
Into a crater, sinks into the Hellmouth. And I just want to say, ultimately, guys, I love The Chosen. It's a great final episode. It's about as good as it gets for a final episode.
Can I add one thing? It's my favorite moment in this episode, and it's before they all go into battle. The Scooby Gang does one final huddle between Giles and Buffy and Xander and Willow, like old times. So what are you going to do tomorrow? And it's so light, and it's like almost, I think, identical to a scene that happens at the end of The Harvest after they survive their first apocalypse. Or their first.
Is it in season 1?
In season 1.
Episode 2 or?
Episode 2, season 1. And, it's just so...
Right before they go into battle. Okay, ultimately, between the two of these, I love both of these episodes, but I think the better made episode, the most skillfully devised episode, the best written episode is Conversations with Dead People. It's an amazing episode, and so I am sorry, Chosen, but rest in peace.
So, what do you guys want to do tomorrow?
Nothing strenuous.
Well, mini golf is always the first thing that comes to mind.
I think we can do better than that.
I was thinking about shopping, as per usual.
There's an R&B in the new mall.
I could use a few items.
Well, now we can discuss this. Save the world, go to the mall.
I'm having a wicked shoe craving.
Aren't you on the patch?
Those never work.
And here I am, invisible to the eye.
See, I need a new
not
look.
having any vote.
It's this whole eye patch thing.
Oh, you could go with the full black secret agent look.
Or the puffy shirt, pirate /
The Earth is definitely doomed.
More vampires?
Not just vampires. The next threat we face may be something quite different.
I can hardly wait.
We are at the center of a mystical convergence here. We may, in fact, stand between the Earth and its total destruction.
Well, I gotta look on the bright side. Maybe I can still get kicked out of school.
Oh, yeah, that's a plan. Because a lot of schools aren't on Hellmouths.
Maybe you could blow something up. They're really strict about that.
I was thinking of a more subtle approach, like excessive not studying.
The Earth is doomed.
Final matchup of the Sweet 16. We have Fool for Love versus The Gift. I love those flashback episodes, where you get to see Spike and Angel and Drusilla and Darla in the past.
Me too.
They're so well done.
They are.
And The Fool for Love is one of those episodes. So Buffy wants to find out from Spike how he killed the 2 Slayers that he killed. And it also shows the story of how he became a vampire. But the two Slayers, one he killed during the Boxer Rebellion in China. So you get that fight scene, which was really great. And like lots of fire in the background. For his second Slayer, that was on the New York subway in 1977, Nikki Woods' mother, Principal Woods. Yeah, so, and that's where Spike got his long black leather jacket. He took it off her after that fight. And remember that Spike is Hostile 17. He was recently captured by the Initiative and had that chip implanted in his head where he can't hurt anything. And he has this thing where he's obsessed with Slayers. He loves to like hunt Slayers down and kill them. And so his thing is still he wants to kill Buffy at this point. And he can't do it because he can't harm a living thing. That's what the chip does. It prevents him from causing harm. And so when Buffy goes to like learn about how he killed the Slayers, he just kind of gets fed up with trying to be helpful to her, and this isn't what he should be doing, and he wants to kill her. And so he goes and he buys a gun set out to kill Buffy. He's like, I bet I can pull a trigger still with this chip in my head. It'll hurt for a couple hours, but I'm gonna go and I am gonna try. Meanwhile, he shows up at Buffy's house, and Buffy's sitting on the front porch, and she's really, really upset.
Yes.
Because she just found out that her mother's headaches might be more than nothing at all, and she has to stay overnight at the hospital for observations, get a CT scan. So she's really upset. And Spike
gets there about to shoot her.
Yeah, he gets there to kill her, and he sees that she's upset, and he's like, what's wrong? And he goes and he sits down next to her and he comforts her instead. Like, he has this soft spot to him that he can't let go of, even though he's supposedly evil.
That's Spike in a nutshell.
That's Spike in a nutshell, which brings me to The Gift, which I watched both these episodes in real time, and going into The Gift, it had that feel of this is it. This is the end of Buffy. I mean, there was just so much nostalgia in it, and just getting ready for this epic battle against a god, a battle they could not win. Like, Buffy's not anywhere near as strong as the god Glory, so they have this whole battle plan set up, and you get this really epic fight scene between Buffy and Glory on that like rickety scaffolding that the crazy people put together, and Willow's really coming into her powers, and she communicates to everyone telepathically, telling them what to do, and Spike goes up to try to save Dawn, who's the key, from this guy that's up there with her, who's gonna like try to like slit her, so because Buffy's trying to keep Glory occupied to miss her window. She only has a small window of time to open the portal. And Spike gets thrown off the thing, so he fails, so he's feeling all like upset for failing, and the portal opens, so Buffy has to sacrifice herself. And that end scene where she's just diving off that scaffolding into the glowy ball, it's like, with the voiceover, it's so like just gut-wrenching.
That's the end of the season, right?
Well, like it was just so final feeling. It's like, what is going to happen next season? Because it was announced that there was a sixth season, but then her just lying there, like Willow was totally raw and upset, and Spike. And when I first started watching Buffy, I was always Team Angel. So like there was just some like forbidden love between Buffy and Angel. But as I've gotten older, I've kind of transitioned to Team Spike. Like he does so much for her. He cares about her so much, and it was so just raw and powerful, that ending there. So The Gift takes this one. I did enjoy Fool for Love, but it's not as good as The Gift.
Fair enough.
Why won't you push her away?
But I did, Pet. I did it for you. And you keep punishing me. Carrying on with creatures like this.
Okay. You guys obviously have a thing going on here.
Let me rest in peace. Why won't you let me rest in peace?
All right, so we have 4 matchups in the Elite 8, and we're going to start with School Hard again versus Buffy versus Dracula. Okay, so let's start with School Hard. In this episode, and I'm not going to summarize it again, let's just talk about it. We really get a sense of the weight and the burden that Buffy is carrying. She's trying to slay vampires and fulfill her duties as a slayer, but her mom is getting on her about her grades and her behavior at school, which her duties as a slayer interfere with. She's also trying desperately to be a normal girl, maintain a social life, maintain some semblance of a romantic life as a young woman. This is an episode where there's some romantic tension between Xander and Cordelia as well, and they haven't hooked up yet, but there's some real kind of palpable chemistry. One thing I never noticed about this show until this particular episode, School Hard, is that just like Roadrunner runs off a cliff and then doesn't fall until he looks down, typically the vampires get staked, and I never noticed this. They get stabbed and they don't turn into dust until they look down and are shocked that they're dying. We also learn in this episode, and this is where you get some sense of the larger politics of the show, is that the principal and the police, they're aware of the Hellmouth. They know about vampires. What they do is they just blame the frequent attacks. They say, oh, well, you got 2 bites on your neck. Well, you must have fallen on something. You must have been impaled. You must have been stabbed. You got invaded by people who looked really funny. Well, they must have been on PCP. So these are just gang members. These are attacks from gang members on PCP. And so they're covering it up and hiding it from the public. And this is really the first episode where you get a real sense that that's what's going on. Buffy versus Dracula. We've already talked about this one a lot, so there's not too much more to say about it. What I like is Dracula is exactly kind of what you would expect if you've read about Dracula. He's presented as this kind of rich libertine, and he doesn't just come into town and stalk Buffy. He moves into town and he has a moving company bring all his statues, and he buys a giant mansion. And the thing about Dracula that makes him different from these other sort of Philistine, vapid vampires that Buffy's slaying on a nightly basis is that Dracula is an intellectual. He's sophisticated. He doesn't just kill to feed. He likes to have a personal connection with his victims. He shows up in your dreams. He follows you. He seduces you. He has a kind of creepy mind control over you. He forms a relationship with his prey. And it's not enough just for Dracula to take Buffy. She has to want to be taken. And so this Kierkegaardian thing where this seducee must want to be seduced. It's not enough to just seduce her. She has to want it as well. There's a great quote from this one that I love, and I have the opportunity finally to quote to you here. Buffy says, one of the greatest Buffy lines of all time, "You think you can just walk in here," she says to him, "with your music video wind and your hypno eyes," which is great.
And with that, Dracula is really like a rock star. He's like the first celebrity vampire, right? And Spike notes that it's because of Dracula that everyone knows how to kill them. And so he blames that on Dracula.
That's right. And, Dracula actually does get her under his thrall, and she has to resist it. And he makes her actually drink his blood, which is one of the few times in the show where you see Buffy just completely hypnotized and powerless. But she eventually overcomes it. She fights him. And I've got to say, to be honest, he's an impressive actor. Dracula's an impressive dude, but he fights in this episode like a little bitch. Wait till you see this fight scene. He's like, the way he punches her, it's hilarious. But the thing is he's Dracula, so you can't kill him. And he always comes back, which is why Dracula will always be part of our legends. He'll always be with us. But I gotta say, I love this episode, but ultimately, in the end, School Hard wins. Buffy versus Dracula, it's got a novelty. It's definitely memorable, but School Hard, I think, in the end, is the better episode. So, rest in peace, Dracula.
A guy like you should think about going electric. Seriously. How do you like my darkness now?
All right, next up in the Elite Eight, we have Passion versus Hush. And these are two of the more aesthetically beautiful episodes of Buffy. Just like throughout their entirety, like in very different ways, though. So in Passion, Angel has lost his soul, and he is just obsessed with Buffy and tormenting her friends and family. He has snuck into Buffy's bedroom, to her mother's bedroom, into Willow's, and he actually killed all her pet fish and left them like strung together in an envelope for her. Really icky. Yeah. And Willow's like, wow, I'm so happy that my parents didn't let me get a puppy.
I didn't have a chance to bond with them yet.
Yeah, because that would have just been so awful. And in this episode, the Scooby Gang figure out how to revoke the invitation for vampires, because once a vampire is invited into your home, well, they're invited in forever.
They change the locks.
Yeah, so they figured out how to change the locks. Exactly. And Jenny Calendar has started to figure out the ritual of restoration that will restore Angel's soul. And so she has put together this computer program with a sampling of the text to try to translate it, because it's in a dead language. And so she's working on that, and she's working on it in her classroom. And the lesson for the day on the board in the classroom is about backing up your data. Keep that in mind. That's very important.
Yeah.
That's very important to the series. And Angel comes in and hunts her down, and it's like a serial killer like horror movie.
Yeah.
You know, where the like killer is like walking behind someone running, except Angel actually runs after her. So it's super, super scary, and he has his vampy face on. So then, of course, Angel leaves a present for Giles in his house, and it's just such an emotional, upsetting scene. Giles comes home to opera playing, and there's candles lit and rose petals everywhere.
Ugh.
It's horrifying. And so I'm going to leave that there, but this is also like when Buffy gets rid of a set, they get rid of a set. So this is also when the factory gets burnt down. They have to always like blow up a set, or like something happens to it.
Yeah.
And Passion is going up against Hush, which is just through and through a phenomenal episode. Even though there's only like 15 minutes of dialogue, I don't know how Joss Whedon did it, but he keeps you like really entertained the whole time, and you always know what is going on. And it has some of the costumes and the makeup, some of the creepiest looking bad guys, those gentlemen with their little like straight-jacketed like companions that run around after them and hold people down while they cut out their
They're
hearts.
in like straight jackets.
Yeah, it's so good. And
it's so good.
More on that in a bit, because Hush is going to have to continue to win right now.
Didn't that win some awards or something like that?
It was nominated for an Emmy. It was the only episode of Buffy ever to be nominated for
What a shame,
an Emmy.
the Emmys.
Yeah, it was.
What a joke.
It was just. It's so good. How? What beat it? I have to look up what beat it.
I don't know.
Yeah, but rest in peace, Passion. You're
Rest
a
in
great
peace.
episode.
I haven't been able to sleep since the night we made love. I need her. I know you understand.
Just leave us alone.
His verbis consensus recissus est.
Sorry, Angel. Change the locks.
So our next matchup in our Elite Eight is Ted versus Conversations with Dead People. And this is so hard because these are two episodes I absolutely love. If you remember, Ted is the episode where Buffy's mom is dating this guy who's just too strangely perfect. There's something wrong with him. And I ended last time by saying that Buffy actually kills him, but not really, because the guy is a robot. When Buffy starts fighting him, she hits him in the face and she tears away a piece of his face, and it turns out he starts sparking and he is a robot. Her mom has been dating a robot. No wonder he's been acting so weird. So after Buffy kills him, she's questioned by the cops. And one of my favorite scenes, too, is when the Scooby Gang is investigating Ted and they find his house. And it turns out he lives in this creepy, like 1950s style bunker apartment where he has stored the first 4 wives that he's killed. So this guy is some weird alien robot weird killer thing. And the showdown of this episode is amazing. Buffy kills the robot man, throws him down the steps, and it seems like he's dead. Willow realizes, as she's investigating things, that the cookies Ted has been giving everyone, that everyone loves so much, have some drug in it that's screwing with people's heads and not allowing them to realize that he's a robot. It's making them very euphoric.
Mind you, Buffy hasn't been eating the cookies because she's been pouty.
Buffy's been pouty. She hates him. She's not going to take a cookie from him. Everyone else is eating the cookies, and it's like Soma for them. They love him. So she kills Ted, but Ted wakes up in the morgue. Obviously, the robot sits up in the morgue, returns to Buffy's house and comes after her and starts beating her up. She stabs him. He begins sparking, and this is the moment she realizes for real that, it's on. It's on. This time, Ted is actually able to beat up Buffy, and she's lying there, and Ted's like, okay, she's lying there. I'm going to go back and get back.
I don't
Joyce
think
back.
Anyone's going to need to watch this episode now. They have a play-by-play from you.
Anyways, my point is, the robot man thinks he's going to be able to have Joyce. So he goes after Joyce again. Buffy kills him for reals this time. And let me just say, the ending is fantastic. Now you don't need to watch it because I'm giving you a play-by-play. So that's Ted. But ultimately, guys, I'm going to reveal this right now. It's season 7, episode 7, Conversations with Dead People, that ultimately wins out. Ted goes no further. He is finally killed, even
Ted
for
is
us.
dead.
Ted is dead. I love the fact that this episode is a series of conversations between different people. And in the process, Buffy is confronting her past, reflecting on who she is with this interesting vampire. Willow thinks she's speaking with Tara from the afterlife, but it's really the first just messing with everyone. There's this terrifying prophecy. No, ultimately, Willow has been led to believe that Tara has issued this prophecy that Willow is going to kill everyone and that Willow is a danger to everyone around her. So this girl convinces Willow, you ought to just kill yourself and go be with the person that you love, Tara. And that is when Willow realizes, wait a minute, you're not a medium, you're a phony. There's something going on here. This girl comes up to her and says, you can be with Tara. All you have to do is go to sleep. And Willow,
Tara would never want that.
And Tara would never say that. So it's clear that this girl is not communicating with Tara. And for Dawn in this episode is about Dawn confronting this powerful force and standing up to it. And we really get to see her strength. And so this episode is all about the strength of our main characters to stand up against this evil that is trying to manipulate all of them. And the ending of this episode is amazing. Overall, this is one of the most tightly edited, most skillfully directed, best written episodes in all of Buffy. It's unbelievable that any director or writer was able to squeeze that much plot into one television show. And remember, this episode comes in the wake of Tara's murder and Spike getting his soul back. So there's a lot of tension, a lot of emotions. This is an underrated episode. People don't agree with me that it should be rated as high as I think it should be rated. And I will go to the mat for this episode. Conversations with Dead People lives on. Ted, I'm sorry. Rest in peace.
Hey, how about that? Got a hole in 2.
Beg to differ.
Okay, so find my score or whatever.
I think you're missing the point here, little lady. Right is right, wrong is wrong. Why don't people see that?
It's just a game.
Right, it's just a game, do your own thing. Well, I'm not wired that way. And I'm here to tell you, it is not a game. It does count, and I don't stand for that kind of malarkey in my house.
But I guess it's a good thing I'm not in your house.
Do you want me to slap that smart-ass mouth of yours? Who's up for dessert? I made chocolate chip cookies.
Last matchup of the Elite 8. We have Something Blue versus The Gift. And let's begin by looking at Something Blue. Something Blue is just one of my favorite Buffy episodes. Like, it's absolutely enjoyable to watch. I can watch it over and over and over again. And it's just because it's really light. And there's so much like seriousness sometimes in Buffy. Like, they have a lot of like quirky dialogue, like very smart dialogue and moments. But this whole episode is one of those moments. And I think that's why I enjoy it so much. And the characters all have so much heart. They really do. And with the spell going awry and watching all the craziness unfold, like Giles going blind, which is so scary and upsetting. But then Buffy's obsessed with Spike while Willow is wallowing, right? Willow just wants Buffy to have girl time with her, and she has to make sure that Spike he's escaped from Giles's house because Giles is blind. So she has to go find him and bring him back. And so Willow's like, oh, she should just marry him. And so they actually get engaged. And it's really fun to see Spike as part of the Scooby Gang.
They start planning the wedding.
They start planning the wedding, and they're still not getting along. And so that happens. And then throughout all of Buffy, just the bad stuff always happens to Xander. He attracted the praying mantis lady. He attracted Anya, who is an ex-demon. He's just always getting into trouble. He was Dracula's little emissary, right? Eating bugs. He got the syphilis, right? During pangs. He's just like, always bad stuff is happening to Xander. And so, of course, he is a demon magnet. And so that makes the spell going awry super dangerous. So these demons are after Xander, who's with Anya. And so they're running away from them. Meanwhile, Buffy's like planning her wedding to Spike. Meanwhile, in Buffy's real life, she and Riley are interested in each other, and they are still nervous around each other. And she runs into him while she's under the spell, thinking she's engaged to Spike, and tells him she's getting married. And so it's just so much fun. Anyway, on the flip side, we have the serious episode, right? We have The Gift. Which is just such a big episode in the whole series. And I've talked quite a bit about it already. And I had a really hard time figuring out which wins this one. But it's because we're celebrating our favorites. Even though The Gift is like really like heart-wrenching and such a great finale for that season, I'm going with Something Blue here. And I'm putting The Gift
Good choice,
to rest.
honey. I love that episode. It makes me so happy.
Me too. I'm going with happiness here. Happiness is important. Yeah. As you get older, as you become more adulty.
You're using Buffy words.
It's happiness and having something fun is important.
Yeah, totally. Joy. I call it joy.
Joy.
Okay, I'll grab some weapons too.
I'm looking for something in a broadsword.
Hey, don't be swinging that thing near me.
Hey, I happen to be...
A glorified bricklayer?
I'm also a swell bowler.
Has his own shoes.
The gods themselves do tremble.
You lost your hammer, sweet cheeks. What are you gonna hit me with now?
Whatever's handy.
Glorified bricklayer picks up a spare.
Let me rest in peace. Why won't you let me rest in peace?
Okay, welcome to the final four. We're almost done here, and we're kind of running out of time, so we're going to expedite this, and I'm going to go quickly here. We've arrived at School Hard versus Conversations with Dead People. And I love School Hard. It's a great episode. It's season 2, episode 3. It comes early on in the show. We meet Spike. We develop all these connections with these new characters, and we see a lot of character development, and we see Buffy come into her role. This is the first moment where Buffy really accepts who she is. And her mother kind of begins to understand the kind of woman that Buffy is and she's going to be. But ultimately, Conversations with Dead People is one of the best episodes of television that I've ever seen. There are 4 to 5 separate storylines, and they're each well developed, expertly devised. There's a horror episode with some of the creepiest images I've ever seen. There is a My Dinner with Andre sort of psychoanalytic conversation going on in a graveyard with Buffy sort of trying to unpack everything. And keep in mind, by the time we get to Conversations with Dead People, it's season 7, episode 7. So much is on the line. There's so much context, so much history, and you have all of these different storylines. You have the weeping Willow weeping for her dear beloved Tara, but it turns out she's being manipulated, and we see Willow really come to fruition as a powerful woman, as someone who's not to be trifled with. And so we see Spike in despair, longing for Buffy, biting whomever will cross his path. And so we're just in this place where so many threads are coming together. It's so well done. I don't think that Conversations with Dead People is an episode that gets enough credit for what it does and for how important it is. So this episode is happily making it to the finals. I have no apologies for this. I'm excited to deliver it to the finals, and I think it deserves to be there. I want more people talking about this episode. And so, honey, do your deed.
Do you think any other Slayers ever had to go to high school?
It's no biggie. You'll have a nice soiree. Parents will love it. As long as nothing really bad happens between now and then, you'll be fine.
Are you crazy? What did you say that for? Now something bad is gonna happen.
What do you mean? Nothing's gonna happen.
Not until some dummy says, as long as nothing bad happens.
It's the ultimate jinx.
What were you thinking? Were we even thinking at all?
Well, you guys don't know. Maybe this time it'll be different.
All right, on my side of the final four, we have Hush going up against Something Blue. And keep in mind that these episodes are very close together in the Buffy storyline. They're both in season 4. Something Blue comes before Hush. So by the time we get to Hush, Buffy and Riley have been seeing each other. They had their first on-screen kiss at the beginning of Hush. And the thing is, they still don't know the other's secret identity. Riley doesn't know that Buffy's the Slayer. Buffy doesn't know that he is one of the commandos that she is searching for. She's been searching for this secret initiative that put the chip in Spike's brain, and he is one of them. But they're both monster hunters. So they have that common thread. So they're even actually a better fit for each other than they even thought possible. And so this is also the episode that Willow joins a Wicca group and she meets Tara for the first time. And everyone in town is stricken with silence, right? They're in isolation due to an outbreak of laryngitis is what they're told on the news, right? And it's really that the gentleman.
Well, that's how the news decides to
they're under quarantine.
Figure it out.
Which we know all about now.
Yeah, rationalize it.
They're under quarantine, the whole town.
Yeah.
But the thing that really happened is the gentlemen, these fairy tale characters, came to town and they stole everyone's voices because it's a human voice that can destroy them. That's the only thing that can kill them, the scream, right? Princess's scream. And we learn about that from Giles during the episode where he has Anya and Buffy and Willow and Xander in the auditorium and he's playing the music and he has the projector going and he has his little drawings and he has Buffy drawn as this wide stick figure and she's like
I remember that. Yeah.
Anyway, it's cute. But this is an epic episode because this is the unveiling for Buffy and Riley of who they are, because they come head to head in the clock tower when they're both hunting the gentleman, and that's how the episode ends.
Yes.
And you're left on that cliffhanger like, what did they say?
It's a magnificent episode.
Oh, it's so good. And now Something Blue, which I also love. And I've talked a bit about Something Blue. And there's this fan theory, I think, out there that Something Blue foreshadows the entirety of season 6 in Buffy. You get the little bits of Willow trying to be controlling. If only she was better at magic, she could have forced Oz to stay. Having that kind of inclination of Buffy and Spike getting together, of Xander being a demon magnet because Anya becomes a demon again in season 6. So there's this whole Yeah, there's maybe something to it. Like all season 6 is based on,
or it could just be post hoc justification, just rationalization, just looking at it and being like, well, that has a similar pattern as this other thing we know about. So who knows? Who knows ultimately?
But anyway, Hush is going to move on to the finals.
Yeah.
It's a marvelous episode.
It is a good choice.
Yeah,
I don't think
it's
you
like
really
it's
had
like
a choice.
perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Yeah. I mean, Something Blue is a lot of fun, but Hush is perfect. So sorry.
Bye. Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
I get this spell reversed, they'll be finding your body for weeks.
Oh, make a move. Please. I'm dying for a good slay.
Spike's more important than me. I get it.
Buffy's got to find out what's up with those commandos. Right now, she needs Spike.
Well, fine. Why doesn't she just go marry him?
If the two of you could remain civil long enough to...
It's just so sudden. I don't know what to say.
Just say yes.
Let me rest in peace. Why won't you let me rest in peace?
Okay, finally, the time has come. We have reached the final round.
Oh, I feel like the gentleman, like clapping silently.
The Slayer Fest, right? This is the Slayer
Fest.
Slayer Fest.
Instead of 98, it's 22.
It's Slayer Fest 2022, okay? We've arrived at our final 2 candidates. It is...
Chosen Two.
The Chosen Two. Conversations with Dead People and Hush. And I briefly considered choosing Conversations with Dead People just to trigger all of you guys and make you upset at me and to get, sort of, irate, angry comments below. But that would have been dishonest.
Yeah, that's disingenuous.
I would have had too much fun. And I'm a bit of a masochist, and I like to tell the truth. And so obviously, the winner is going to be Hush. I love Conversations with Dead People. I was proud to deliver it to the final round. I think it's an episode that more people need to pay attention to and watch. I think it's a kind of a masterclass in filmmaking, screenwriting, modern television, all of that stuff.
You knew what I've done. What I've let myself become. My best friends don't even. You'd laugh if you heard some of the things I've done to them.
Buffy, I'm here to kill you, not to judge you.
The last guy I was with got really... I behaved like a monster. Treated him like... And at the same time, I let him completely take me over. Do things to me that... I'm sorry. Wow, I didn't mean to get all true confessions on you there. I don't know what's wrong with me.
There's nothing wrong with you. Everyone's got issues.
I think ultimately Hush is an episode for the ages. I think it just does so many things. And I also think we've talked so much about it that we've kind of talked it to death, but it's scary. It does innovative things with silence and quiet. There's all sorts of stuff going on in the background. And I just think it's
so many details. Even when Tara and Willow are running away from the gentleman and to lock the door, they use the vending machine that was the same vending machine from Sunnydale High. But
it's the little things. It's the
all
details.
the little things, and they're throughout Buffy. They're always so good about the details.
It's why it's so watchable. You can watch Buffy. You can watch Buffy dozens of times. And you get something new out of it every time. And that's how you know something is a true work of art. It's like Lord of the Rings. You can read it over and over and over again.
Yeah, you always catch something new. There's so much there. And you may not remember this, but Hush is the first episode I ever showed you. It was Halloween 2009, and
and you know, I kind of forgot because Halloween, it got mixed up with the horror movies.
Yeah, and so I showed you Hush because I thought,
Really?
I thought it was a great episode that maybe you could watch out of context. But
Well, no
you
wonder I fell in love with the show.
No, you hated it. You're like, this is so stupid. Why did you make me watch this? I guess it was out of context.
I didn't get it. I didn't understand Buffy at the time.
Jim Morrison and Pamela Corzin
For
that
Halloween.
year
That
for
was-
Halloween.
yeah,
that was
yeah.
that was that night. Yeah, you weren't too thrilled. So I had to wait a few years to show it to him again. So I baby steps. We started with Harry Potter.
They call it soteriology. They call that soteriology when it's like with religions. The soteriology is when you gradually introduce a religion to someone step by step, and you don't introduce sort of the like if it's Scientology,
It's too much.
You don't tell people about the space aliens until they've become like a senior Thetan or whatever. So there's kind of a soteriology with this, and the first time I watched it, I just didn't understand what it was. But the more I watched it, the more I came to love Buffy, and I'm kind of glad now to hear that Hush was my first episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought you'd forget that, so sharing that on air. And
Thank you
I think
so
we're
much.
done. Cheers.
Cheers. We deserve this.
Oh.
This was a long episode.
This was a big undertaking, and we did it
deserve-
all in one day.
I deserve this
It is
cupcake.
nighttime now. It was
Cheers.
daytime when we started. Yeah.